actually look like. Oh, okay, sorry about that. What these non-standardized tests would actually look like. There was some vague suggestion, for example, that non-standardized tests would be creative or perhaps open-ended. I would have really liked the affirmative team to come out with a few examples of what their model actually is. I wasn't particularly clear, and I think the negative team also pointed out that despite including these mini quizzes, which aren't worth much, that are maybe more open-ended, we weren't actually sure what those quizzes would involve, right? How would they actually, unlock and be able to get through to those students who maybe were a little more creative or a little less conducive to standardized tests? If I had gotten that clarity, I think I would have accepted this point a lot more readily. Another issue that I thought sprung out from the affirmative team's arguments was the overuse of vague phrases. Okay, so phrases, for example, like potential. I think that was, perhaps something that could have been expanded on quite significantly, could have been expanded on in terms of, maybe what skills specifically that standardized testing doesn't test. And as an adjudicator, I can't really accept, what I think the potential of the argument could have been. I have to accept on face value what was presented to me by the affirmative team. And I thought what was presented to me was overall quite a vague and unclear case. Even though I could see what direction it was definitely going in, overall, I felt that the terms that were used were too vague. The negative team, however, I thought built a much stronger case on this point. The main thing that the negative team told us was that standardized testing had better pedagogical value because of three factors. One, that it was much more fair in terms of marking, which wasn't particularly really challenged by the affirmative team, and I think could have been an area that was challenged quite a bit in terms of standardized testing is marked in a consistent way. Maybe, there could be some criticism of the way that it's marked. Okay, so for example, if we look at English essays, the way that marking rubrics are set up to only test for certain qualities, there are a lot of things that the affirmative team could have come out with, but unfortunately didn't. So I had to let that point stand. Second of all, I thought that the objective benchmark, which is the main concept that the negative team was relying on, could help students and parents figure out their academic strengths and their weaknesses. I thought that was probably true. Once again, I think the affirmative team could have pushed back a lot stronger by saying, well, academic strengths and weaknesses don't just mean answering 20 maths questions in a row. But unfortunately, that wasn't a point that was made out. And thirdly, I think that the much stronger and largely unresponded to point by the negative team, which I thought was actually quite complex and interesting, was that, well, school administrative bodies really need some kind of data in order to figure out how to distribute resources and how to distribute teaching staff. And I thought that was a very clever point because it's not just about marking, right? It takes it a little bit outside of students and teachers, and it becomes more about, well, why do we need this objective data to begin with? Is it just for students, or is it actually because, administratively speaking, we do need some kind of benchmark in order to make sure the education system gets lifted up across schools, across classes. And I thought that was a strong point that was largely unresponded to by the negative team. So because of my decisions on those two main themes, the first theme being quite on the balance, but the second theme, I think, leaning slightly more to the negative team, I have awarded this debate to the negative team.